The rain poured steadily that Sunday morning, soaking the narrow dirt paths leading to the house of divine intervention. Despite the weather, a large crowd gathered outside the modest prayer house, eagerly waiting to get inside. The small wooden structure wasn't grand, but it was famous. Everyone in the surrounding villages knew about Mama Vision, the prayer house's charismatic leader. They spoke of her as a prophetess who could see into the future, uncover hidden secrets, and heal the sick. Victor stood among the crowd, pulling his jacket tighter against the cold rain. He didn't talk much as the people around him chatted excitedly about the miracles they had seen at Mama Vision's sessions. A man in front of him, holding a young boy's hand, said, "Last week, she healed my neighbor. He was blind for years, and now he can see clearly." Victor nodded silently, but kept his thoughts to himself. He had heard these stories before. People came from far and wide to see Mama Vision, bringing their troubles and their hopes, often leaving with lighter pockets and heavier hearts. Victor had his reasons for being here, reasons he hadn't shared with anyone. It wasn't just curiosity or skepticism that brought him to the prayer house. It was something far more personal. Victor's wife, Clara, had become deeply dedicated to Mama Vision over the past year. At first, he didn't mind. She spoke passionately about the prayer house and its work, and he thought it was just another way for her to strengthen her faith. But things had changed. Clara began spending more and more time at the prayer house. When she wasn't there, she was talking about it, telling Victor that Mama Vision had warned her about negative forces in their lives. Their once loving home became filled with arguments and tension. A month ago, Clara left, saying she needed time away to focus on God. Victor suspected Mama Vision's influence had something to do with their separation. Now he was here not just to see what the prayer house was about, but also to understand its power over Clara and so many others. He wanted answers. The House of Divine Intervention was simple. Bare wooden walls, a few benches, and a small altar at the front. The crowd quickly filled every available space, with many standing along the walls and sitting on the floor. Victor found a spot near the back, where he could see everything without drawing attention to himself. His eyes scanned the room, taking in the faces of the people around him. Most looked desperate, women clutching sick children, elderly men leaning on canes, young people with tear-streaked faces. They had all come looking for hope, for answers, for a miracle. Suddenly, the room grew quiet. Mama Vision had entered. She came from a small door behind the altar, dressed in a flowing white gown that sparkled in the dim light. Her head was wrapped in a colorful scarf, and she carried a simple wooden staff. Her presence was magnetic. The moment she appeared, all eyes were on her. "Praise the Lord," she called out, her voice strong and commanding. "Hallelujah," the crowd responded in unison. Mama Vision raised her hand for silence, her sharp eyes scanning the room. "The Spirit of God is here," she said, "and tonight, miracles will happen." The people erupted in cheers, clapping and shouting praises. Victor didn't cheer. He watched her carefully, studying the way she moved and spoke. There was no denying her charisma. She had the crowd hanging on her every word. Mama Vision turned to one of her aides and whispered something. The aide nodded and pointed to a man sitting in the corner. The man wore dark glasses and held a walking stick, his head slightly bowed. Two young men helped him stand and guided him to the front of the room. Mama Vision approached him, placing her hand gently on his shoulder. "What is your name, my son?" she asked. "Samson," the man replied softly. She closed her eyes and began to pray, her voice rising and falling with emotion. "Lord, heal your servant Samson. Open his eyes and let him see the beauty of your creation." The crowd joined in, shouting "Amen" repeatedly. After a few moments, Mama Vision stepped back and looked Samson in the eyes. "Take off your glasses," she commanded. "The Lord has healed you." Samson hesitated, his hands trembling as he removed the glasses. The room fell silent. Then slowly, he blinked and looked around, a look of wonder spreading across his face. "I can see," he cried. The crowd erupted into applause and cheers, many falling to their knees in gratitude. Victor remained silent, his expression unreadable. He watched Samson closely, trying to match the man's face to a memory. Something about him felt familiar, but Victor couldn't place it. Not yet. After the session ended, Victor stayed in his seat as the crowd began to leave. He noticed that some people lingered, approaching Mama Vision with envelopes and small bags, which her aides quickly collected. Others knelt at her feet, asking for prayers and blessings. Victor stepped outside and began walking back toward his village. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still overcast. As he walked, he replayed the evening in his mind. The energy in the room, the miracle, the way Mama Vision had commanded the attention of everyone present. It was impressive, but something didn't sit right with him. Later that night, as Victor passed through the local marketplace, he froze in his tracks. There in the distance, he saw Samson, the same man who had been healed earlier that evening. Samson was walking confidently, carrying a basket of goods and chatting with a vendor. He didn't look like someone who had been blind. In fact, he moved with the ease of someone who had seen his entire life. Victor's stomach tightened. "What's going on here?" he muttered to himself. But he didn't have an answer. Not yet. That night, as Victor lay awake in bed, he thought about the stories he had heard. People selling their land to sow a seed of faith. Families breaking apart because of prophecies about curses or bad luck. He thought about Samson, and the miracle that now seemed more like a performance than a divine act. And he thought about Clara, her devotion to Mama Vision, her sudden mistrust of him, her decision to leave. Victor made a decision. He would keep going back to the House of Divine Intervention, not as a follower, but as an observer. Something about Mama Vision and her prayer house didn't feel right, and he was determined to find out the truth. Years before the name Mama Vision was whispered with awe and reverence, she was simply Margaret, a young woman from a small farming village. Life was simple, and her family's faith was their foundation. Her father worked as a tailor, stitching clothes for the locals, while her mother sold vegetables at the market. Despite their humble means, they were proud of Margaret, their eldest daughter, who had a way of capturing people's attention with her voice and presence. Everyone in the village believed Margaret was destined for greatness. She sang in church choirs, led prayers, and spoke with a conviction that left others inspired. Her parents encouraged her, often reminding her that she was God's chosen one. But Margaret had bigger dreams. She wanted more than the small-town life her parents envisioned for her. Margaret had always been close to her childhood friend, Agnes. Unlike Margaret, Agnes was bold, ambitious, and unafraid to bend the rules to get what she wanted. The two often talked about their futures, but Agnes's advice always had a sharp edge. "Margaret," Agnes said one afternoon as they sat under the shade of a tree, "why are you wasting your time with small things? Singing in the choir, leading prayers in this tiny village? You could be so much more." Margaret frowned. "What do you mean? I'm doing what I love." Agnes leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I mean ministry, real ministry. Look at the big names, people with houses, cars, and influence. They don't struggle like the rest of us. People worship them. Why chase after some regular job when you could sit back and have others take care of you?" Margaret laughed nervously. "I don't know, Agnes. That kind of life. It feels too far from me." Agnes smirked. "It's closer than you think. There's a conference in the city next month. Big pastors and leaders will be there. Come with me. Let me show you what's possible." Margaret hesitated, but the seed had been planted. That night, she lay awake, imagining herself on a stage, commanding a crowd, being admired. It was tempting. Finally, she agreed to go. Before the conference, Margaret's life took an unexpected turn. She met Samuel, a kind and hard-working man who came to her village to repair the local church's roof. Samuel was gentle, soft-spoken, and deeply committed to his faith. Unlike the flashy men Agnes admired, Samuel's humility and sincerity captured Margaret's heart. They began spending time together, walking through the fields, talking about their dreams. Samuel wanted to build a life rooted in love and faith, and for a while Margaret thought she could want that too. They married in a small ceremony, surrounded by family and friends. Samuel was everything Margaret could ask for in a husband: supportive, loving, and patient. But the pull of ambition still lingered in Margaret's heart. She couldn't ignore the dream Agnes had painted for her, a life of influence and admiration. When Agnes reminded her about the upcoming conference, Margaret hesitated. Samuel encouraged her, saying, "If it's something you're passionate about, go. I'll always support you." With his blessing, she went. The conference was a world away from Margaret's quiet village life. It was held in a grand hall filled with influential pastors, evangelists, and spiritual leaders from across the country. Margaret felt small and out of place, but Agnes reassured her. "You belong here," she said. "Watch and learn." It was there that Margaret met Pastor Silas, the charismatic leader who seemed to have all the answers. Silas spoke about power, influence, and the sacrifices necessary to achieve greatness in ministry. Margaret was captivated by his words. During a private session, Silas pulled Margaret aside. "You have a gift," he said, "but gifts are wasted without the right commitment. Are you ready to become something greater than you are now?" Margaret nodded hesitantly. "What does it take?" Silas smiled knowingly. "It takes sacrifice. Greatness doesn't come freely. It requires giving up what holds you back. Are you willing to pay the price?" Margaret's heart pounded. She didn't know what he meant, but she was too curious to turn back. Silas invited her to a small, secretive gathering that evening. "This is where true leaders are made," he said. That night, Margaret attended the gathering, which was held in a dimly lit room filled with incense and chanting. Silas explained the terms. To gain the power to see into people's lives, to draw them in and to command respect, she would need to make a personal sacrifice. The words hit her like a blow when Silas revealed what the sacrifice would be. "You must give up your husband," he said. "Not just Samuel, but the idea of marriage itself. You will never marry again. Your loyalty must be to the kingdom you are about to join." Margaret was horrified. She loved Samuel deeply. But as Silas spoke of the power and influence she would gain, her ambition flared. The idea of being revered, of never having to struggle, of people flocking to her for guidance. It was intoxicating. "If you agree," Silas continued, "you will also gain your spiritual form, a creature that represents your new role in the kingdom." Margaret hesitated, but the chanting and Silas's presence overwhelmed her. Slowly she nodded. "I agree." The ritual began. The air grew heavy, and Margaret felt a strange energy building around her. Silas declared her spiritual animal, the vulture, a symbol of watchfulness and the ability to feed off the weaknesses of others. By the end of the night, Margaret felt transformed. She wasn't just a woman anymore. She was something more, something darker. When she returned home, Samuel noticed the change immediately. "What happened to you?" he asked. Margaret couldn't bring herself to answer. Days later, she told him their marriage couldn't work. Samuel was heartbroken, but Margaret left without looking back. She buried her love for him deep inside, replacing it with the ambition that now drove her every move. After leaving Samuel, Margaret embraced her new identity as Mama Vision. She returned to her village, where she began her ministry. Her visions quickly gained attention as she used the knowledge and power she had gained during the ritual. People believed she could see their futures, uncover their secrets, and deliver divine blessings. The House of Divine Intervention grew rapidly, funded by donations from those desperate for miracles. Mama Vision introduced tools like blessed water, prayer mirrors, and personalized prophecies, which further cemented her influence. She became the figure Agnes had always talked about, a woman revered, respected, and feared. But beneath her glowing public image, Mama Vision carried the weight of her choices. Samuel, the husband she had loved, was gone. And every night, as part of her allegiance to the occult kingdom, she transformed into her spiritual form, a vulture, and joined others in the realm to renew her dark powers. Back at the prayer house, Victor sat quietly in the back, observing everything. Mama Vision commanded the room with ease, her words weaving a spell over the crowd. But Victor's mind was elsewhere, replaying the memories of his wife Clara and the devotion she had shown to this woman. Victor didn't know everything yet, but he knew this. Mama Vision wasn't just a woman of faith. She was something much more complicated and much more dangerous. The House of Divine Intervention wasn't grand, but its reputation made it seem larger than life. Situated at the edge of the village, it was surrounded by tall trees and a river that sparkled under the sun. From the outside, it looked like a simple wooden structure, but to those who came seeking miracles, it was a gateway to divine power. Inside, however, there was an unmistakable atmosphere of desperation. The walls were bare, the benches old and creaky, but the room was always packed. People came from far and wide, carrying their hopes, fears, and offerings. Victor stood at the back of the prayer house during another evening session, blending into the crowd. He watched as people carried envelopes filled with money, sacks of grain, and even small livestock to the altar. The offerings were collected by Mama Vision's aides, led by her right-hand woman Agnes, the same friend who had convinced her to start this ministry. Agnes moved swiftly, her practiced hands ensuring nothing was left behind. Mama Vision stepped onto the small stage at the front, her flowing white robe giving her an almost otherworldly presence. The room fell silent as she raised her hands. "The Spirit of God is moving in this place," she declared, her voice rising like a wave. "Tonight, someone's destiny will change forever." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Victor observed how easily she commanded their attention. He watched as she scanned the room, her sharp eyes settling on a young woman seated near the front. Mama Vision pointed at her. "You," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "Come forward." The young woman, trembling, made her way to the altar. She looked no older than 20, her clothes worn but clean. Victor could see the fear and hope in her eyes. "What is your name, my child?" Mama Vision asked. "Angela," the girl whispered. Mama Vision closed her eyes for a moment, as if listening to something only she could hear. Then she opened them and spoke with conviction. "Angela, the Lord has revealed something to me. There is a curse on your family. This curse has been stopping you from progressing in life. But tonight, the Lord is ready to set you free." The crowd gasped, murmurs of hallelujah rippling through the room. "But," Mama Vision continued, her tone serious, "freedom comes with a price. You must sow a seed, a sacrifice that will show your faith." Angela hesitated, tears streaming down her face. "I don't have much," she stammered. "I've already given what I could. Do not worry, my child. You just need to continue so that your blessings will be released. Do not relent and give the devil a chance. If you trust the Lord, he will multiply your blessings." Angela nodded and reached into her bag, pulling out a small bundle of notes. She handed it to Agnes, who quickly placed it in the offering basket. Mama Vision placed her hand on Angela's head and began to pray loudly, her voice rising with intensity. Victor watched the scene unfold, his stomach twisting. He didn't doubt Angela's sincerity, but something about the exchange felt rehearsed, calculated. As the session ended and the crowd began to disperse, Victor spotted someone he hadn't expected to see. Angela's husband, Matthew. The young man stood near the entrance, his face pale and drawn. He looked like he wanted to speak to Angela, but couldn't bring himself to enter the prayer house. Victor approached him. "Are you all right?" he asked. Matthew looked up, startled. I came to take her home," he said quietly, his voice shaking. "She's been coming here for months. We've sold almost everything we own because of the prophecies. I begged her not to come today, but she wouldn't listen." Victor's stomach tightened. "What kind of prophecies?" he asked, though he already suspected the answer. "She says Mama Vision told her I'm cursed," Matthew replied, his voice breaking. "That I'm the reason for all our problems. I tried to talk to her, but she won't listen. Now she says we need to separate for her to be free of my bad luck." Victor felt a pang of familiarity. It was the same story Clara had told him before she left, the same accusations, the same blind faith in Mama Vision's words. He took a deep breath and asked, "Are things bad between you two?" Matthew nodded miserably, Our marriage is falling apart. She believes everything Mama Vision says, and she's not the only one. Do you know how many women in this prayer house have left their husbands? It's almost like..." He hesitated, as if afraid to say the words aloud. "Like it's part of the plan?" Victor finished for him. Matthew nodded again. "Exactly." Victor left the prayer house that night with his mind racing. It wasn't just his imagination. Mama Vision was deliberately driving women away from their husbands. He thought about Clara and all the arguments they'd had about the prayer house, about how she had insisted he was holding her back and that Mama Vision had the answers she needed. He couldn't shake the anger bubbling inside him. What does she gain from this? He muttered to himself. But even as he asked the question, part of him already knew the answer. Victor thought about the endless stream of offerings, money, grain, livestock. Where was it all going? The prayer house was big, but it wasn't grand. The benches were old, the walls were plain, and the roof leaked when it rained. Mama Vision didn't seem to be investing in the prayer house itself, so what was she doing with the money? His thoughts turned to Agnes, the efficient and calculating aide who seemed to oversee every aspect of the offerings. Could she be part of the reason for the growing wealth Victor suspected was hidden away? Victor clenched his fists. It wasn't just the money or the broken marriages. It was the fact that so many people trusted Mama Vision, believing her words came from God. If she was lying, if this was all a manipulation, then she was destroying lives for her own gain. Victor was back at the House of Divine Intervention the following evening, his resolve stronger than ever. He sat quietly at the back, blending into the shadows as the usual crowd filled the prayer house. He watched as Mama Vision moved through the room, speaking to individuals, blessing others, and delivering her usual mix of comforting and ominous messages. But Victor wasn't here to be comforted. He was here to observe. The words of Matthew, Angela's husband, echoed in his mind. Do you know how many women in this prayer house have left their husbands? It's almost like it's part of the plan. Victor had no doubt now that it was. The question was why, and what was Mama Vision doing with all the money pouring in? As the session progressed, Victor noticed Agnes, Mama Vision's right-hand woman and longtime friend, moving briskly between the altar and the crowd. She collected envelopes, sacks of grain, and even a goat someone had brought as an offering. Her efficiency was remarkable, and Victor realized that Agnes wasn't just an aide. She was the one overseeing the prayer house's finances. The prayer house itself remained modest. The benches were still old and creaky, the walls unadorned, and the roof leaked during heavy rains. Mama Vision didn't seem to spend the money on improving the place or helping her followers. Yet the cash flowed in, week after week. Victor decided it was time to find out more. When the session ended, Victor lingered near the back of the prayer house, pretending to be deep in prayer. He watched as Agnes slipped into the back room with the night's offerings. Quietly, Victor followed her, careful to stay out of sight. The back room was dimly lit, its walls lined with shelves holding prayer books, bottles of holy water, and jars of anointing oil. At the far end, a small door led to another room. Victor crept closer, peering through a crack in the door. Inside, Agnes was counting stacks of cash, her hands moving quickly as she sorted the bills into bundles. Nearby, Victor noticed a ledger filled with names, dates, and amounts. Beside the ledger was a map with several locations circled, towns in the region. Agnes muttered to herself as she worked. These fools don't even realize how much they're giving. Mama was right. Faith blinds them. Victor's heart raced. They're keeping meticulous records. Why? He scanned the room and noticed a blueprint pinned to the wall. At first glance, it looked like plans for a building. His eyes widened as he read the words scrawled across the top. Mama Vision's estate. It was clear now. The money wasn't going toward the prayer house or the community. It was being funneled into a grand mansion Mama Vision was building on the outskirts of the nearby town. Beside the blueprint were additional documents detailing plans to open a second branch of the prayer house in that same town. Victor clenched his fists. She's using their faith to fund her empire. As Victor slipped out of the back room and returned to his seat, he noticed Mama Vision addressing the congregation. She held up a small container filled with white crystals. "This," she announced, "is the next tool the Lord has revealed to me. It is blessed salt, sanctified by the Spirit of God. With this salt you can ward off evil spirits, break curses, and protect your homes from harm." The crowd gasped, murmuring in awe. Mama Vision continued, her voice filled with urgency. "But this is not ordinary salt. It has been prayed over and its power is unmatched. However, it must be used with faith, or it will not work. If you want to protect your family, make sure you take a packet home today." Agnes moved swiftly, distributing the packets to eager members of the congregation. Victor noticed the price tags on the containers, ridiculously high for something that was most likely plain table salt. Yet people were handing over money without hesitation, desperate for protection from the evil spirits Mama Vision warned them about. Victor's stomach churned. He realized the blessed salt was just another scheme to extort money from the congregation. Mama Vision called a middle-aged man named Jacob to the front. He was visibly anxious, wringing his hands as he approached the altar. "My son, you have been struggling with your business," Mama Vision said, placing a hand on his head. "The Spirit has revealed something to me about your struggles." Jacob looked up, his face filled with a mix of hope and fear. "What is it, Mama?" Mama Vision closed her eyes for a moment, as if in deep concentration. Then, she opened them and spoke with solemnity. "Your mother is the one haunting you. She is a witch." The crowd gasped, and Jacob staggered back, his face pale. "No, really? I just knew something was following me," he stammered. Mama Vision nodded gravely. "It is the truth, my son. She is a witch, using witchcraft to hold back your progress. You must distance yourself from her and sow a seed for deliverance." Victor watched in horror as Jacob collapsed to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably. He knew in his heart that this was a lie. Mama Vision had no way of knowing such a thing, and even if she did, no evidence supported it. But the damage was already done. The seed of doubt had been planted, and Jacob's relationship with his mother would likely never recover. As Victor walked home that night, his mind raced. Mama Vision wasn't just exploiting people financially. She was manipulating them on every level. By instilling fear, she ensured their loyalty. By selling false hope in the form of blessed items, she drained them of their resources. And by breaking families apart, she isolated her followers, making them more dependent on her. Victor clenched his fists. "This has to stop," he muttered. But how could he fight someone with so much power? Someone who had convinced an entire community that she was chosen by God? He thought of Clara, of Angela, of Matthew, and now Jacob. He thought of the mansion Mama Vision was building, and the new branch she was planning to open. She was spreading her influence, growing her empire, and ruining lives in the process. Victor knew he had to act. He needed more proof, more allies, and a plan. The truth was there, just beneath the surface. It was time to bring it into the light. Victor had seen enough to know that Mama Vision's prophecies were designed to destroy lives, but nothing prepared him for the conversation he had with Jacob. He had known Jacob and his mother for a long time and knew that his mother could not possibly be a witch. He knew he had to do something about the seed of doubt already planted in his heart. After another prayer session, Jacob sat alone near the edge of the prayer house, staring blankly at the ground. His normally cheerful face was pale and lined with worry. Victor approached cautiously, sitting down beside him. "Jacob," he said gently, "I need to talk to you." Jacob looked up, his eyes red and tired. "What is it, Victor?" Victor hesitated, then spoke. "I don't think what Mama Vision said about your mother is true." Jacob's expression hardened immediately. "How can you say that? She's a prophetess. She knows things no one else can." Victor shook his head. "But have you ever seen anything that would make you think your mother is involved in witchcraft? Has she ever done anything strange?" Jacob's jaw tightened. "No, but that doesn't mean anything. Mama Vision said the curse is spiritual, something I can't see. She's the one with the divine insight, not me." Victor sighed, realizing he wasn't getting through. "Jacob, your mother raised you. She loves you. Don't you think you should talk to her before making any decisions?" Jacob stood abruptly, his hands clenched into fists. "You don't understand, Victor. Mama Vision said I needed to separate myself from her. If I don't, my life will never get better." Victor watched helplessly as Jacob walked away, his heart heavy. He knew Jacob's relationship with his mother was hanging by a thread, and Mama Vision's lies had made it even worse. Determined to uncover the truth, Victor decided to visit Jacob's mother, a frail widow who lived in a small hut on the outskirts of the village. When she opened the door, her face lit up with a warm smile. "Victor, it's been a long time. What brings you here?" Victor hesitated, unsure how to begin. "Mama, I wanted to talk to you about Jacob. He hasn't been himself lately." Her smile faded, and she gestured for him to sit. "I know," she said softly. "He hasn't come to see me in weeks. He doesn't answer my calls. I don't know what I've done to make him so distant." Victor's chest tightened. The famous prophetess Mama Vision told him that you're a witch, that you're the reason for his struggles. The woman gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "What? Me? A witch? Victor, I have never done anything like that in my life. I don't even know how to think about such things. Jacob is my only child. I've raised him alone since his father died. Why would I want to harm him?" Tears filled her eyes, and Victor felt a pang of guilt for even bringing it up. "I'm sorry, Mama," he said. "I don't believe it either. That's why I'm here. I needed to hear it from you." She wiped her eyes and shook her head. "I don't understand how anyone could say such things. All I've ever wanted is for Jacob to be happy. If he believes this lie, it will break my heart." Victor left her home deeply moved. Mama Vision's lies weren't just breaking marriages. They were tearing apart families in ways that left scars too deep to heal. He decided to dig deeper, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, Mama Vision continued her double life. By day, she was the revered prophetess, delivering sermons, selling her blessed items, and staging miraculous healings. Her fame was growing, especially with the opening of her second prayer house in the nearby town. But by night, she returned to the river, where her occult practices took on a sinister form, chanting in ancient languages, calling on dark forces, and meeting with others who seemed to share her powers. These nocturnal meetings were part of the pact she had made with the Marine Kingdom. To maintain her influence and wealth, she needed to renew her allegiance regularly, and while she played the role of the benevolent leader in public, her real purpose was far more sinister: to sow discord, exploit faith, and enrich herself at the expense of her followers. One evening after a prayer session, Victor was leaving the prayer house, and he decided to approach his wife. He had seen her multiple times in the congregation, but she seemed to be avoiding him, so he decided to let her be. But today, he would confront her. "Clara!" he called, hurrying toward her. For a moment she looked surprised, but her expression quickly turned cold. "What do you want, Victor?" she said sharply. "I just want to talk," he said, his voice pleading. "I miss you. Do you mean our marriage has ended just like that? I thought you just needed some time." Clara shook her head. "Mama Vision warned me about this. She said you'd try to manipulate me, that you'd say anything to get me back. I've been told to stay away from you, and I intend to listen." Victor's heart sank. "Clara, she's lying to you. She's not who she says she is. I've seen things you wouldn't believe." Clara took a step back, her voice rising. "You don't know what you're talking about. Mama Vision is the only one who understands what I'm going through. She said you're holding me back, and now I see it's true." Victor watched helplessly as she turned and walked away, her words cutting deeper than any wound. He felt an overwhelming sense of loss, not just for Clara, but for the life they had shared. And in that moment, he knew he couldn't sit idly by any longer. He needed to take drastic action. That night, Victor sat in his small room, staring at the wall as his mind raced. He thought about Jacob's mother, about Angela and Matthew, about Clara. He thought about the countless lives Mama Vision was destroying, all while building her empire. "I have to stop her," he whispered to himself. "But I need proof." The next day, Victor ordered a small recording device online. He knew it was risky, but it was the only way to expose Mama Vision. If he could capture her lies, her manipulations, he could bring the truth to light. When the device arrived, Victor wasted no time. He arranged for a private session with Mama Vision, claiming he needed her help with a personal problem. As he prepared for the meeting, he felt a mix of fear and determination. This was his chance to uncover the truth, but it could also put him in danger. Victor slipped the recording device into his pocket and took a deep breath. It was time to face Mama Vision. Victor arrived at the House of Divine Intervention for his private session with Mama Vision, his small recording device tucked securely in his pocket. He had spent the night preparing, knowing this was his best chance to gather evidence. If he could plant the device in her office, it might capture the conversations and secrets he needed to expose her. Mama Vision welcomed him into her office, her piercing eyes scanning him intently. Victor immediately felt a strange chill in the room. It wasn't just her commanding presence, it was something deeper, something unsettling. She gestured for him to sit. "Young man," she said, her voice steady but sharp, "what is it that troubles you?" Victor forced a smile. "Mama, I need your help. My life feels stuck, like there's something blocking me. I came to seek your guidance." Mama Vision nodded slowly, but her expression didn't soften. Instead, her eyes narrowed, and a knowing smirk appeared on her lips. "You've been restless, haven't you?" she said, wondering, searching for answers. "But tell me, Victor, are you sure you're looking in the right places?" Victor swallowed hard. I don't understand." Mama Vision leaned forward, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "I see more than you think. Be careful, Victor. You're walking a dangerous path. If you value your life, tread lightly." The words sent a chill down Victor's spine. Her tone wasn't a threat, it was a warning. She knew. Somehow she knew he had ulterior motives. The longer the session went on, the more Victor felt the weight of her gaze, as though she were studying him, peeling back layers of his thoughts. When she left the room briefly, he seized his chance. Quickly, he placed the recording device under her desk, hidden behind a stack of papers. By the time she returned, Victor was already standing, ready to leave. "Thank you, Mama," he said, forcing a polite tone. "I feel lighter already." Mama Vision didn't smile. Her eyes lingered on him as she said, "Go with faith, my son. But remember my words, some battles are not meant to be fought." Victor left the prayer house, his heart racing. He had managed to plant the device, but her warning echoed in his mind. How much did she know? That night, Victor's sleep was plagued with strange dreams. He found himself standing in a dark, endless void, surrounded by whispers that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Shadowy figures loomed around him, their eyes glowing, their voices mocking. "Why are you here?" one voice hissed. "You cannot win." Another voice, deeper and more menacing, spoke directly into his mind. "You will lose everything." Victor woke in a cold sweat, his heart pounding. The dreams felt too real, too vivid. Over the next few nights, they only grew worse. He dreamed of vultures circling overhead, of water rising around him, pulling him under. Each time he woke gasping for air, fear clawing at his chest. One night, after waking from another nightmare, Victor fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his face as he prayed aloud. "God, I don't know what's happening. I can't do this alone. Please take control. Show me what to do." The next morning, Victor felt a small sense of peace he hadn't felt in weeks. The nightmares hadn't broken him. They had reminded him of where his true strength lay. He knew he couldn't fight this battle alone, and he decided it was time to confide in someone he trusted. Victor reached out to his old friend Ezekiel, a former pastor who had left ministry years ago after seeing too much corruption in the church. Ezekiel was sharp, level-headed, and fiercely protective of the truth. If anyone could help him, it was Ezekiel. Victor met Ezekiel in a quiet corner of a cafe, explaining everything he had seen and heard, the fake miracles, the financial exploitation. Ezekiel listened carefully, his face growing grimmer with each word. When Victor finished, Ezekiel nodded. "You were right to come to me," he said. This is bigger than you, Victor. It's spiritual warfare. If you're going to expose her, you need to be prepared, not just physically, but spiritually. Victor felt a surge of relief. For the first time in weeks, he didn't feel completely alone. Together, he and Ezekiel began to plan their next steps, starting with analyzing the recording Victor had made. That evening, Victor and Ezekiel played back the recording, their faces growing darker with every word. Mama Vision and Agnes discussed the expansion of the ministry, targeting wealthy families with staged miracles and fear-based prophecies. They revealed plans to open branches in 3 additional towns, each designed to draw in more offerings. Manipulative tools. The so-called blessed items, holy water and salt, were directly tied to Mama Vision's occult practices. Agnes laughed about a member who believed the salt had saved her home. "It's just regular salt," she said, "but fear makes them believe anything." Mama Vision spoke openly about the offerings, boasting about the wealth they were accumulating. "They'll give anything if you make them think it's for their salvation," she said. Then came the chilling part. "The Marine Queen is growing impatient," she said. "She wants more sacrifices, more loyalty. If we fail, we lose everything." Victor sat in stunned silence as the recording ended. Mama Vision wasn't just a fraud. She was deeply entangled in something dark and dangerous. He thought of her warning, the nightmares, and the lives she was destroying. He couldn't let it continue. "We need more," Ezekiel said. "We need to see her practices firsthand." Victor nodded. "I'll follow her tonight," he said. "I need to see it with my own eyes." That night, Victor positioned himself near the riverbank, hidden among the trees. As midnight approached, he saw Mama Vision and Agnes arrive. They carried a bundle wrapped in cloth, chanting in low, guttural voices. Victor watched in horror as Mama Vision began to transform, her arms becoming wings, her body covered in dark feathers. With a piercing cry, she disappeared beneath the water, leaving Victor frozen in place. He had seen enough to know one thing. This wasn't just deception. It was evil. Victor returned home, his heart heavy but his resolve stronger than ever. He knew what he had to do. It was time to expose Mama Vision once and for all. Victor and Ezekiel spent the following weeks meticulously gathering evidence against Mama Vision. They knew the task was dangerous, but their resolve to expose her deception outweighed their fear. They prayed fervently each day, asking for strength and divine guidance in their mission. "God," Victor prayed one evening, "we can't do this on our own. Lead us, protect us, and let the truth set these people free." Armed with recording devices and hidden cameras, they began attending her sessions regularly, documenting every staged miracle, manipulative prophecy, and financial exploitation. Staged miracles. They captured footage of Mama Vision's aides paying actors to pose as sick or disabled people, only to miraculously heal them during the service. Victor recorded Mama Vision's nocturnal rituals near the river, including her transformations into a vulture-like creature and her eerie chants to the Marine Queen. The recordings showed her speaking in an unrecognizable language and offering items as sacrifices. Using a concealed microphone, they documented Mama Vision falsely accusing people's loved ones of being witches. One recording revealed her coaching a follower to sever ties with their family. "Distance yourself from them, or their curses will destroy you." The evidence was damning. Every piece painted a clear picture of deception, greed, and spiritual manipulation. Once they had enough evidence, Victor and Ezekiel decided to take the next step. They compiled the recordings, photographs, and testimonies into a comprehensive report. To protect their identities, they anonymously leaked the story to several local media outlets. The first headline appeared within days: "Exposing Mama Vision, False Prophecies and Occult Practices Behind the Prayer House Empire." The story spread like wildfire. News anchors discussed the shocking revelations, showing clips of staged miracles and occult rituals. Social media erupted with outrage as people shared their experiences and disbelief. The media coverage sent shockwaves through the community. Many of Mama Vision's followers were devastated. They had believed in her completely, sacrificing their money, relationships, and trust in others because of her prophecies. Women who had abandoned their husbands wept as they realized they had been manipulated. Angela, who had left her husband Matthew, was one of many who reached out to reconcile, apologizing for believing Mama Vision's lies. Jacob, and so many others who had severed ties with his mother, broke down in tears when he saw the footage. He immediately visited her, begging for forgiveness. "I'm so sorry, Mama," he sobbed. "I was blinded by her lies." Many realized they had been coerced into giving up their savings, land, and possessions for false promises of blessings. They felt betrayed, angry, and lost. The exodus from the prayer house was swift. Attendance dwindled as followers abandoned Mama Vision. The once packed sessions became ghostly gatherings, with only a handful of loyalists remaining. The authorities launched an investigation into Mama Vision's activities. The evidence Victor and Ezekiel provided exposed financial fraud, illegal practices, and emotional abuse. Mama Vision, alongside her trusted aide Agnes, faced charges for misappropriation of funds, deception, and exploiting vulnerable individuals. Her occult practice and the sacrifice of her husband were also exposed, as that was the beginning of it all. Her empire crumbled. The second prayer house she had opened was shut down, and the mansion she was building was seized. The Marine Queen, whom Mama Vision had served for years, offered no reprieve. Without the offerings and followers to sustain her power, her connection to the occult kingdom began to wane, leaving her isolated and vulnerable. Throughout the ordeal, Victor and Ezekiel never wavered in their faith. They prayed daily, asking God to protect those who had been hurt and to guide them in helping others rebuild their lives. Victor, too, found strength in prayer. Though he had lost much, including his marriage to Clara, he felt peace knowing he had done what was right. As the dust settled, the community began to heal. Victor and Ezekiel worked quietly to support those who had been affected, encouraging them to seek reconciliation and forgiveness. Victor stood at the edge of the river one evening, watching the water flow peacefully. He thought of the battle he had fought and the lives that had been touched. "God," he whispered, "thank you for giving me the strength to do this. I know there's still more to be done, but I trust you to lead the way." Mama Vision, once a powerful and feared figure, now sat alone. Her influence was gone, and her empire was dismantled. The voices that had once guided her from the Marine Kingdom were silent, leaving her to confront the cost of her choices. She had sacrificed everything, her humanity, her family, and her soul, for power, only to lose it all. Victor, who had lost Clara to Mama Vision's influence, watched silently as other families reunited. He learned that Clara had moved to the neighboring town after Mama Vision's secret got exposed without a word to him. He thought maybe she felt too ashamed to face him. Though his marriage had not survived, he found solace in the knowledge that his actions had helped others find the truth. He immersed himself in community work, helping those still grappling with the aftermath of the lies they had believed. Among the many victims was Naomi, a widow who had given nearly everything to Mama Vision in hopes of finding peace and blessings. For months, she had lived in regret, mourning the life savings she had lost and the friendships she had severed on Mama Vision's advice. But Naomi refused to let bitterness consume her. She began organizing small gatherings in her home, inviting others to share their stories and find solace in each other's company. Through these meetings, Naomi found a renewed purpose, spreading awareness about spiritual manipulation and helping others rediscover their faith. "God's word is our anchor," she often said, "not the words of people, no matter how convincing they may sound. If we want to know him, we must read his word ourselves." Her gatherings grew over time, becoming a source of hope and encouragement for many who had been hurt by Mama Vision's deceptions. Victor, reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this moment, spoke during one of Naomi's gatherings. His voice was steady, but his words carried the weight of his experience. "We've learned a hard lesson," he said. "Not everyone who claims to speak for God is telling the truth. The Bible warns test every spirit to see whether it is from God. We didn't do that. We trusted blindly, and we paid the price." He paused, looking at the faces around him. But we can't let this break us. God is still good. His word is still true. If there's one thing we've learned, it's that we must know God for ourselves. Not through someone else, not through rituals or objects, but through His word. Read the Bible. Pray with a sincere heart. Seek Him, and He will reveal Himself to you. The room was silent, the weight of His words settling over the group. For many, it was a moment of clarity, a call to take responsibility for their faith and their relationship with God. As time passed, the community began to heal. The scars of Mama Vision's deception remained, but so did the lessons learned. Families rebuilt their bonds. Individuals rediscovered their faith. Victor and Ezekiel continued their work, quietly supporting those who needed help. Though the journey had been painful, they were grateful for the chance to bring truth to light and to remind people of God's ultimate authority. Faith, Victor often said, isn't about miracles or signs. It's about trusting in the one who holds all power and knowing that His love is enough.